in a time now where there's a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty. And I think with the holidays coming up and everything else, it makes it just that much more stressful. But the only thing that you have control over is the things that are just around you, your health, your own personal well-being, the people you care about. Take the time to invest there, because we can often, try and distract ourselves outside of that and neglect what matters most. Because the healthier you are, the more you invest in your well-being and your relationships, the better it's going to be. And a lot of those things that are swirling around you won't affect you nearly as much. So take the time. Don't put it on the back burner.
You're listening to the Just Sayin podcast, offering conversations with experts that will educate, inform, and entertain. Here's your host of the Just Sayin podcast, Charlie Cornacchio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Just Sayin podcast. Thanks for tuning in. So, the holidays are upon us. We got Thanksgiving, we got Christmas, then New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and that means lots of food. But how do you handle the temptation of all those great tastes and smells if you've been on a diet or you're trying to stay on a diet? Well, today we have a certified health and wellness expert who is here to provide some tips and guidance to get us through the holiday temptations that will take us into our New Year's resolution. Theresa Trella is with us, and don't we all need some coaching now and then? Hi, Theresa. How are you?
I'm good, Charlie. How are you?
I'm good. As if this COVID-19 wasn't enough, and I mean that the 19 pounds that I've gained since COVID has really put me behind schedule. And now we've got the greatest eating holidays of the year coming up on us, back to back.
I know it's tough with all the comfort food and all the emotions connected with all of it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's happy or not, it's still, we tie it up with food. And you know what? From the time we were born, what did food do? It comforted us. It made us feel good, right? We're wired for that. I would say the first thing is, number one, don't be so hard on yourself, because we're wired a certain way and the world around us is not necessarily conducive to us being the healthiest for that reason, right? Mm-hmm. Because we want comfort. We want to avoid emotional pain, physical pain, whatever. And food is something that brings us pleasure. And so when you have ubiquitous, convenient food now delivered right to your door,
yes,
right? It makes it that much harder to kind of stay on track. And so really what the most important thing to do is to take a step back and to say, okay, why is being healthy important to me? If you think about it, being healthy means living a longer, more vibrant life. And you expand that out. So what is important about my life that I want to be the best version of myself? And that's where you need to start. And then it's easy to reverse engineer the kind of action steps you want to take. But there are also some things that you have to recognize about the way you're wired and the things that are in front of you. And so there's certain disciplines, but also certain science you have to put into place and recognize when the warning signs come up and how to, head those off at the pass before you eat the entire pumpkin pie.
Yeah. I want to get to that a little deeper in a second.
Sure.
The science and the balance and all that stuff, just the body makeup. But first, let's learn a little bit more about you and how you got into this line of coaching.
Well, it's kind of interesting that we're talking about it at this time of year, because I actually started my journey 3 weeks before Christmas, on the Monday after Thanksgiving. The kids threw us a 25th anniversary / 50th birthday party. Right. And, when you're approaching a zero age, right, it's always a pause, right? It's always retrospective on my life and where the heck am I going? Well, this was the big 5-0 for me. Went into the party thrilled because it was, so wonderful to have so much love around. But there was also a little bit of a kind of a sword of Damocles hanging over my head, because it was like, okay, the kids are almost done. My energy isn't the best. We weren't exactly where we wanted to be. And you know what? The prescriptions were starting for my husband, Chuck, Already he was almost pre-diabetic. He was on cholesterol meds, and I knew what his family history was. So it was a little bit of like, gosh, will we make it to our 50th anniversary kind of feeling? Then someone who was, nice enough to be taking pictures at the party took a picture of me from behind when I was cutting the cake.
So always so flattering, right?
Always so flattering, right? And I thought I wasn't so bad. I mean, I knew my smaller size pants didn't fit me anymore, but I thought I looked okay. And I swear to you, if I didn't know what I was wearing, I would not have believed it was me. I was like, are you kidding? Really? And so it became very clear what needed to be done. And so for a year and a half, I tried everything. I like to eat and I don't like to exercise. And so I was not real good at following diets. So I tried Whole Foods, I tried NutriBullet, I tried all that stuff. Lost 5, gained 10. It was one of those types of things. And then my cousin was posting all over Facebook that she had lost 48 pounds in less than 5 months and had basically gotten her life back. And Chuck saw that and said, I want to do whatever she's doing. I don't care what it is. And I said, you realize, it's Thanksgiving. Are you nuts? And then he said, no. He says, look, there's a holiday every month. So if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it?
That's true. There is a holiday because there's got to be a birthday, an anniversary, a
Well,
wedding, right?
yeah, exactly. Well, in our family, forget about it, right? But for me, it was like, the only month that doesn't have a holiday happens to be August, which is when my birthday is. So I always have an excuse. So at any rate, we started that Monday, and I got to tell you, in the 3 weeks that we worked with my cousin as a coach, she was my coach, and followed the program and everything else, we could not believe the results we got. And when we got to Christmas, it was like clarity. I couldn't believe it. It was like I had slept walked all those years of doing, holidays because, sleep deprivation, eating all the food and everything else. And I actually got to this day with clarity. And full disclosure, I was the woman cooking all the food on Christmas and darn well was going to eat it. So I made the decision I was going to mindfully enjoy it. But you know what? I did. I had that clarity. I didn't feel like I had to eat everything. I tasted everything, enjoyed it fully, got right back on my program and continued until we, within a short period of time had lost all the weight we wanted to lose.
Yeah, and it's not, you know better than anybody, but it's not just about losing weight to try and look good, to fit in pants, to, wear that shirt you haven't been able to wear for 3 years.
Right.
It's more about conscious thinking of health, and also your brain works differently, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And this is the thing, and it's kind of the idea of diet mentality versus a health mentality, which is perfectly what you outlined. If you are worrying about what you need to get rid of, like I want to lose 30 pounds, you're going to be losing 30 pounds for the rest of your life because that's the way we work. When we're avoiding pain,
Hmm.
as soon as the pain starts to go away, we go back to our old behaviors. We go back to our habitual, those well-worn grooves in our brain, those habits. When you are thinking of health and you're thinking of that vibrant life that you want, the things that you care for, the kids, the grandkids, the things you want to do, the traveling, whatever it is, that's what pulls you forward. And that's the thing when you come up against a temptation will be the thing that trumps it every time, right? Because that's what matters to you.
Yeah.
That's what matters most. Whereas if it's like, well, the pants are fitting better, I'm not as achy anymore, I can go ahead and have the, whatever it is, fill in the blank. Whereas if you said, you know what, I have made such great progress and I know that I want to be able to get down on that floor and play with that grandkid, or I want to be able to run that 5K, or I want to be able to do a walking tour of Great Britain, which is something that's one of my dreams, then it keeps you going.
Yeah.
It helps you to make that positive choice.
Mm. All right, so let's go back to what you were saying about the science behind it. I was talking to a nutritionist
Mm-hmm.
who had told me that don't get lost in trying to lose weight and get yourself into a pant size that maybe you don't belong in, or see a guy with, a six pack and say, I want that.
Right.
Don't get yourself bogged down because we all as we have different personalities and different tendencies as
Mhm.
individuals, we also have a set body type that is biologically set for us, that we're going to be at our best self the way our body and our DNA is made up. So to try and fit into someone else's DNA, it doesn't work. You've got to be healthy in your own, within your own self.
Yeah.
You get that, right?
Oh, absolutely. The comparative reality never works,
Right.
no matter what you're trying to accomplish, whether it is trying to lose weight or trying to reach a business goal or an artistic goal or anything like that. You do have to work within your own strengths. But there's also this limiting concept idea that comes into play too. We think because we're a certain age, or in my case, I'm an older woman, that it's a fait accompli that I am going to be overweight, or I'm going to have these various problems. But the reality is, my skeleton hasn't changed all that much, from when I was in my 20s. So that body is still there. And that health, that vibrant health that you can have at any age, I'm not going to be able to do all the same things that I did when I was in my 20s, but I can sure as heck be a lot better off now that I'm approaching 60 than maybe my concepts would have said. And so that, I think, is an important thing to say. And the other thing that is also important to remember is that when it comes to health and health outcomes and things like that, our genetics actually only account for about 20% of the outcome.
Hmm.
The rest of it is environment, how we interact with our environment, and the lifestyle choices that we make. So it's becoming the best version of yourself. And a big part of what we do in our program is, besides cutting edge nutritional science, that is always going to work with your biology, it's dealing with what's up here. You got to get the fat out of your head if you want the fat to stay off your body, right? It's starting to break through some of those limiting concepts and saying, you know what? I am not a victim of my age. I'm not a victim of my surroundings. I'm not a victim of my circumstances. I can be the dominant force in my life. I can make choices, within realistic. I mean, I'm not going to, flap my wings now and fly away, but I can still, be. And I think that was one of the things that was a real breakthrough for me, was when I took that picture, the before and after with the backs. I looked at myself. I said, that's the same shape I had when I was in my 20s. I mean, I've had 4 kids, so, that's not the same. But I can be that person again. I can have that vibrancy well into my 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond.
What happens to the brain when you eat, like, let's say, a very balanced diet and you do things the way you're supposed to do from a food perspective? How does the brain react to that?
The brain, well, that's super important, because, like, and this is part of the whole addictive thing with anything, with whether it be food, drugs, alcohol, social media, things along those lines, is that it produces that dopamine hit that you want. But the problem is that if you're constantly going for that, that's a temporary fix, a temporary high, as compared to satisfaction, as compared to what I was just saying about setting a goal, knowing your why, and making those accomplishments. Think about, the analogy is like an athlete. There's that training that you go through to get that level of performance so you can win that gold medal, so you can get that thing. The process is not fun. It's not immediately reinforcing, but the satisfaction is much more long term. And so one of the things they found, looking at, neuroscience and things like that, is when you're looking for that immediate gratification that comes with putting something in your mouth or whatever, it only lasts for the amount of time that thing is in your mouth. And so you constantly have to keep doing it. And the interesting thing is, with more of the addictive tendencies, is that eventually it takes more and more and more to get that same level of reinforcement for that immediate gratification. And so that's part of what happens to the brain. And then beyond that, also, when you're dealing just with out of balance blood sugar, when you're dealing with the insulin levels going up and down and everything else, not only is it wreaking havoc on your organs, it's also wreaking havoc with your brain. You talk to anybody about, the fog that happens, the lack of mental acuity that happens. And I'm not a science on this. I'm a person that just helps other people to do the same thing I did. But when you read about it, you say, the connections with Alzheimer's, connections with cancer, connections with all of these things that plague us, connected to the inflammatory response that comes from this out of balance blood sugars and the stresses and everything else that we have in our lives. So that's what happens to the brain, which is the control center, but the entire body is affected by all of this.
Yeah, the importance of staying balanced is really what it comes down to. And I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and he talked about getting in shape, like getting in fight shape. If you wanted to run a marathon, you're not going to go out and run like, 8 miles the first day. You might do a mile, and it's painful. But the key is your body can handle it. And if you push through that pain mentally, then you get to the next level. You get to the next level, and things get easier, even though they're harder. They get easier from when you look backwards. And I think that's a big part of the mindset of anybody going into any program, self improvement program of any kind, is to think to yourself, this is not going to be easy, but I'm stronger than it is, right?
That's part of it. But one of the things that is really important in our program, and there's four components that work together to make this happen, is the nutrition part, the coaching, the community support, because that's important to surround yourself with people that are supporting you. But then it's that education piece, and the education piece that is it's called the habits of health. The thing that makes a habit stick, to form a habit, is you find the smallest thing you can do toward installing that habit. I'll give you an example. One woman's story in our program. She wanted to be able to pick up her grandchildren. Right? Okay. She couldn't. She wasn't strong enough. And she was in the process of losing weight. And so he said to her, well, what is it that you can do? And she said, I can do push-ups. And he says, okay, you know the proper form for a push-up. How many can you do? And she said, oh, about 10. She couldn't even do one once she did the right thing. And he says, okay, well, this is what I want you to do. Every time you go to the bathroom, and one of the things we teach our clients is drinking a lot of water. So you do that a lot. And so he said, just go out into the hallway and do a wall push-up. Just do one every time you go to the bathroom, and so that it became like a habit. And eventually it became more and more. And eventually she was able to go down on the floor and do it and more. And that's the idea, is it's like, to make it simple, you want to make incremental steps toward what it is that you want, that you can do, like whether you feel like it or not, you can do this thing every single day. And then, like you said, it has a radiant effect, because what ends up happening is number one, you get stronger, and the thing that you thought was completely out of reach now becomes accessible. And then the cool thing is when you do these things in certain areas, like certain habits, it'll have a radiant effect on other areas of your life that you didn't even intentionally try
Right.
to make an improvement. So yeah, but it's going with the small first. Like there's a great book called The Power of Habit, and that's one of the things he talks about, is he talks about that habit loop and how to engineer it, but you have to start small and consistent, because that's what trains our brain to bring those things about.
Reasonable, attainable goals.
That's
Just
it.
be realistic with your goals, I guess. All right. So, Thanksgiving, Christmas, what advice would you give to people who may not even be on a diet, but just want to maybe start to get into a regimen? What's the fail-safe method to get through these two major holidays?
Well, first of all, let's get a little bit realistic. I mean, I didn't do the calculations, but like in our program, we actually have people fuel their bodies every 3 hours. So they're eating 5 to 6 times a day. Okay. If you multiply that by the number of days between now and New Year's, that's a lot of meals,
Right.
even if you're only doing the 3, right? So are we going to completely blow and, caution to the wind for 3 days worth of, 3 dinners, maybe a few more with some parties or that? So first, get perspective, and understand that that's there. You can start to do easy things, like I just said. What about having a little something to eat every 3 hours, and try and make those things balanced between carb and protein? So that's helping to even out your blood sugar. How about drinking more water? You can do that. When you're actually approaching those days, you can, number one, make sure you don't starve yourself the whole day saying, oh, I'm going to be eating the big Thanksgiving meal, so I'm going to eat nothing,
That's right.
right? Because I'll tell you this right now, a lot of people do this, skip breakfast, don't skip breakfast. don't starve yourself, because when your blood sugar goes down like that, the minute you put something in, it spikes up, you get the insulin response, then you're starving again. You're gonna get into this total overeating thing going on. Try and eat balanced, regular meals and don't starve yourself. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, think about the plate. When you look at the plate, we always say, we advise like a 9-inch plate. Portion control. A balanced plate will be a quarter of it's going to be your protein, a quarter of it's going to be your whole grains or whatever, and then the other half will be some combination of your fruits and your vegetables. If you limit yourself to that each time and you eat slowly, your brain is going to register you're full and you won't be as inclined to eat as much. So that's the other thing. And if you're going to parties and things like that, have a healthy snack or something before you go so you're not going starving.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're hanging out, don't hang out near the food table.
Right.
And focus on the fact that what makes the holidays so amazing is, the people you're spending time with. Become present to the people that you are with. Make your choices ahead of time, have a plan. And what matters most to you? Do you want to be in a food coma during these holidays? Do you want to get to New Year's feeling like so worn out, so behind the curve that even doing a resolution is too much? We always say, we have a saying called lead from the future, act now. So
Mm-hmm.
know what you want your outcome to be, and then have a plan now with those things. Hopefully those are things that'll help.
Yeah. Good advice. What should people be looking for in a program?
Something that, number one, is health oriented. The National Weight Loss Registry is an organization that does research on why some people are successful at losing weight and maintaining that weight loss versus the 85% who gain it back. And it's taking those things that they have found to be true and applying those. What are they? They are, number one, science-based, good nutrition program. So you want something with that. Two, having that coaching, having somebody that you can be accountable to, having that social network that's going to support you, and then making the substantial changes in your own habits and behaviors and your own education. Because as I said, like, all of those things have to work together. So that's what you want to look for. Is you don't want to just look for something that's a quick fix. Everybody wants a quick fix. And you know what? You get what you pay for, even if you pay a lot of money for it. If you're not putting in the time, like you said, that realistic goals, the small incremental changes that are going to make it stick, you're going to go right back to where you were.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a waste of your time and your money. And over time, you won't get as great results anymore because your body's getting tired of it,
Yes.
of the yo-yoing. So yeah, you want to look for something that science-based, good nutrition, and gives you that accountability and support that you need, as well as good education.
Now, if people want more information, something that we may not have covered in this episode, where could they get in touch with you?
Best way would be to reach out to me on Facebook, facebook.com/Theresa Trella. And my email is hummingbird828@gmail.com. Just reach out, send me a friend request and a Facebook message to let me know that you're interested in learning more. And then I can direct you to a place where you can actually look at the information for yourself and make your own decision. And then if you want to have a deeper conversation about your goals, I'd be so honored to be the person to help you to do that.
Your program, your organization is international.
It is.
How many members do you have?
I know we have helped well over 1.5 million people all around the world.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think more than that too, because the international piece we went into was in Singapore and Hong Kong. And I'm not sure exactly what the population is there, but I know before we went in there, it was well over 1 million here in the States.
Wow. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, Theresa, great information, great inspiration for those of us who are looking to, get a better mindset, have more longevity, want to be able to do the things that we want to do physically, and kind of maybe get out of that rut or those grooves that you said are just kind of beveled into our brain and
It
our
is.
pathways. So Thanks so much for that. That's excellent stuff.
You're welcome. And one more thing I wanted to say, because I was thinking about the trip down to Gettysburg. The tour guide said something that really, really impacted me. And he talked about the guys on that battlefield and how even though they were part of a huge battle, a huge experience, the only thing that they knew with absolute certainty was the 10 feet around them. And we're in a time now where there's a lot of stress, a lot of uncertainty. And I think with the holidays coming up and everything else, it makes it just that much more stressful. But the only thing that you have control over is the things that are just around you. Your health, your own personal well-being, the people you care about. Take the time to invest there, because we can often, try and distract ourselves outside of that and neglect what matters most. Because the healthier you are, the more you invest in your well-being and your relationships, the better it's going to be. And a lot of those things that are swirling around you won't affect you nearly as much. So take the time. Don't put it on the back burner.
Words to live by. Excellent. Theresa, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for coming on the Just Sayin podcast.
I loved it. Thank you, Charlie.
Anyway, that will do it for this edition of the Just Sayin podcast. Make sure that you never miss an episode of the Just Sayin podcast with Charlie Cornacchio by subscribing, or you could also find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any podcast platform that you get your podcasts from, or on YouTube and Facebook for the video version of the podcast. Make sure to download or order my book, How I Met My Mother and the Four Brothers I Never Knew I Had. And you can get that through Barnes & Noble or wherever you download your books. That will do it for this edition. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and be kind. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Just Sayin podcast.